especially in regard to what? That's,
No.
David, you're saying something? Okay. Okay. So, so then we'll proceed. No, who we are in this season has changed for very many of us. The world has become pretty unpredictable. Sorry? Sorry, I didn't get that. Okay. Kindly mute your machine if you're.
Let me show you.
No, it's okay. Now it's
Okay, we are together. Okay. So I was saying that for many of us, we've had to revisit who we've perceived ourselves to be. You're getting? And sort of kind of redefine ourselves in the new changing world, yeah? And there are so many reasons why things seem to be changing. But a key thing that we must look at if we want to figure out who we are in a changing world, we have to look at some 3 questions, which sort of are the components of what self-concept is, okay? And what these are, who do you see? Is someone saying something? I didn't get that.
but you go to the bedroom of Auntie. Yeah?
Okay. Please mute your machine if you're not.
Go to
So I'll quickly ask.
Jerry.
Edna, please mute everybody.
Yeah,
I want you to stay with.
okay. I think we're all muted now. Okay. So I'll quickly ask, and you can use a piece of paper just to write that down as you think through for yourself. Who do you see when you look at yourself in the mirror? Who do you see? You know, most of the time we ask children these questions. Nobody takes time to ask the adult who they see when they look at themselves in the mirror. And yet the adult roles are highly they change so rapidly, you know, because we assume new roles over time, and gradually we sort of tend to see different things every time we look at ourselves in the mirror. And I'd simply ask, maybe 1 or 2 people can say what they think. Who do you see when you look at yourself in the mirror? Honestly, and not what we, not what we tell people when we go for talks and things like that. When on your own, what do you see, or who do you see when you look at yourself in the mirror? Sorry? Anyone? Who do you see when you look at yourself in the mirror? Remember to unmute your machine. You want to say something? Anyone? Is it that we don't know who we see, or we are thinking through it? Who do you see when you look at yourself in the mirror? Or another, something else that would be good for you to begin to think about it is, who do people say you are? You know? And ideally, who do you want to become as well? Those are some of the things, or some of the questions you may ask yourself, yeah, when you're thinking through who you are. You know, and I'm sure some of us have used this when giving exercises to clients and things like that. But even as much as we give them outward, most of the time we don't take time to think for ourselves. Yeah, who do we see when we look in the mirror? Mm-hmm. And then with growing up, we sort of tend to adjust to care less about what people say, or rather show we care less, you know, not necessarily stop caring entirely, you know. So sometimes it's good for you to introspect and think, what do people say you are, you know? And I'm sure for most of us, we are still in the process of becoming, you know. So ultimately, who do you want to become? Those are questions that can greatly facilitate who you are, you know, despite what's going on. And at least something to bear in mind as we proceed with the session. Okay, so I'll go on. The self-concept. There are three components to self-concept, which is what you say. And one of those is who you are. Your self-image, which is who you are, how you see yourself, basically, your ideal self, who you want to become, you know, and your self-esteem, which I think is greatly tied to our personality, and is the one thing that upon getting to adulthood and a good understanding of yourself may remain constant even as you go through life. May remain constant, not a guarantee. However, it's important to note that self-concept on it as generally may not be as constant as we may think it may be. Okay? And, how do we define self-concept? Can be defined as our individual perceptions of our behavior, abilities, and unique characteristics, a mental picture of who we are as a person. It's usually more malleable when people are younger and still going through the process of self-discovery and identity formation. And it has also been more researched for younger people, you know, the children and the adolescents. Researchers, allow me to mute someone just before. So very few researchers have looked into our self-concept as we grow older, you know, in middle adulthood, late adulthood as well. Very few people have looked into that. And a big part of that is because a lot of research has been based on self-esteem more than self-concept generally. But I think one thing that all of us can agree on is your self-concept is bound to change or rather may change as you grow older as well. However, as people age, self-perceptions become much more detailed and organized as people form a better idea of who they are and what is important to them. Maybe on that note, based on that third statement, I'd ask, your earliest memory of yourself, if you can remember as far back as when you were below 5, if you can, or at least for those who may have children or have interacted with children, who do 5-year-olds say they are? Children at around the age of 5. Anyone?
Uh,
Yes.
I can say
Yes.
some of them say that they are like their parents.
Mm-hmm.
Others say they're like the famous people they know.
Mm-hmm.
So they tend to refer to the people most of the time who are around them or who influence them.
That is very true, actually. What about much younger? The first time they start talking? Anyone? First time they start talking, maybe 2 going to 3 when they're just joining kindergarten. Who do you hear them? How do you hear them refer to themselves? You ask them, so who are you? Because we do that a lot when we meet young children. Just ask, who are you? Yes, tell me. What do they say in most cases?
They say, I'm a boy, I'm a
Yeah.
girl.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
That is actually very true. Refer more to gender roles than anything else, yeah? Because that's what they know. What that means is then, and by the time they get to adolescence, their definition of themselves also changes, you know? We know how that changes. What do they say by the time they get to adolescence? For those who may have adolescents or can remember when they were adolescents, who are you when you are an adolescent? Yes?
Most of them talk about their aspirational selves.
Uh-huh.
So
Mm-hmm.
they refer to themselves as the people they admire most
Mm-hmm.
or what they would want to be
Mm-hmm.
more than who they are at that time.
Mm-hmm. That is actually quite true because when you talk to adolescents, you hear them say, I'm an artist, you know, I'm a poet, I'm a singer, you know, and sometimes they'll go all the way and actually tell you which singer, which artist they think they are more like if you ask them that. Or if you ask them, so what are some of your strengths or characteristics? They may mention the strengths of whoever they are looking up to more than their own personal strengths. Okay? They mention who they identify with the most or who they aspire to become. Okay? As professionals in the field of psychology for many years, you may have worked on your self-concept. You may be so clear about who you are. However, in this season of COVID-19, you may find that your perception of yourself has been challenged or in question. Like I'd simply ask, you don't have to answer. I think before we went into lockdown, for most of us, I'd ask a simple question like, um, what time would you shower in the day? You don't have to answer. And what is it that made you want to shower at that particular time? You know, so what has changed significantly? Does it mean you love yourself less, or you just feel it's less important? You know, among others. You know, I remember there's a joke, something that was being said recently on the street that one of the most underused items for most ladies at this season of the lockdown is a brassiere. You know, and you'd wonder, so what has changed? Does it mean we don't feel the need to put it on? You know, it just doesn't matter. Then why did it matter before? You know, whatever it is we were using it for before, does it mean that we don't need to use it for that same purpose anymore because we are staying at home? Those are all things that you may think you need to think through, and that is really on the life side of what's your perception of yourself. For some of us, you were working, you had maybe consistent clients, you were maybe running a business, you know, among others, you are doing something consistently. However, that has quickly changed and you've had to adjust to a new normal that is making you ask, so what am I? And just in case, I know this is worst case scenario, but let's say just in case this never changes, so what am I going to become? Who am I going to become? How else can I do my work and achieve my goals without necessarily having room to get out of the house, among others. So those are all things that you can think through. Okay? So proceed. Our current concept of self as adults, maybe I'm a therapist, I'm a counselor, I'm a mom, I'm a dad, I'm a wife, I'm a husband, I'm a daughter, I'm a son, I'm kind, I'm difficult, depending on who you are. I'm assertive, I'm gentle, opinionated, a natural leader, wealthy, well-spoken, poor, African, beautiful, handsome, average, etc. We have many characteristics that we may use, or many things that we may use to refer to ourselves, or many ways that we may perceive ourselves, depending on where we are at. And a good understanding of that helps you. I usually say you can never move forward unless you can go back. So unless you understand what was, it makes it very difficult to work through what is and what will be, Yeah. According to Chris and Tanner, self-concept can be split into three categories: the individual self, which consists of attributes and personality traits that distinguish us from other individuals. For example, I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert, I'm conscientious, I'm open-minded, I'm neurotic, depending on where you are at. I know most people may not necessarily use neurotic because we perceive it negatively. So, yeah. But depending on who you are, you may know that about yourself, okay? Or your level of self-awareness, you may know that about yourself. Then the other way that, the other category that we use to define self-concept is the relational self, which is defined by our relationships with significant others. For example, sister, brother, friend, husband, wife, daughter, son, and which has also been called to question at this time. Because the truth is, for most people, at least for a good, I've had of loose discussions all over the place and online about higher rates of gender-based of violence within the home setup because of the lockdown, among others. When you think about that, then you wonder, how is it possible? Sorry, allow me to move this. Sorry. Yeah. So what that means is, it would be interesting to find out, is it possible that there are couples who never had violence before, families who never experienced violence before, who are now experiencing violence because they are locked down in the same home together? Those are features that would be interesting to look at. Then we have the collective self, which reflects our membership in social groups. For example, I'm an African, I'm a Kenyan, I'm a Christian, I'm married, I'm single, I'm straight, I'm gay, among others. So we have different variations of how we, of where we pick our concepts of self from. And for as long as these aspects are affected, then our self-concept is also bound to be affected. Being aware of that helps us stay more in control. Okay? Oh, we are having some people having problem with sound. Hope it's better now. Laura, are you able to see the PowerPoint now? Please let me know, even on the chat. Thank you. And Anne, sorry, I didn't read this earlier. Aunt Fernandez said, who I am, I sometimes feel like all is starting afresh, all is new, I am new, but I don't know the starting point in these challenging times. That's valid, Anne. Thank you for that. Okay. Okay, so we'll proceed. So some of the theories of self-concept, despite the many theories about how self-concept develops, you can all theorize about how self-concept develops. Theorists generally agree that it is the overall idea we have about who we are and includes cognitive and affective judgments about ourselves. What are some of the cognitive and affective judgments about ourselves? Sorry. Let's just think through that. You can reply on. Oh, life pillars, you asked a question. As we think through that, allow me to answer. Would you say there's continuity of the three self-concept components? I think, from at least from what is written and from what I think that this varies over time. There can be continuity, yes, but there's also an element of growth, malleability. This can be shaped differently over time. I think that is also absolutely important to remember when you're thinking about self-concept. Your individual self can change depending on what's going on at that particular time. Let me go back to that slide. Your relational self can also change. Your relational self can also change depending on the new roles that you assume or new relationships that you get into. Your collective self also changes. So I think there is an element of continuity, but continuity is more about how you feel about yourself. That's more likely to be continuous. But then there's an element of malleability as well, where this changes, takes new shapes, yeah, or new versions depending on where you are at. Okay, I hope I've responded to that, life pillars. Okay. So I had asked, what are some of the cognitive and affective judgments we have of ourselves? Would you think? What are some of the cognitive and affective judgments we have of ourselves? Anyone? It's okay, you can respond on chat as well. Yes. Glad to be here. Okay. Sometimes we perceive ourselves very differently from those around us in attempting to assert our own sense of self. That is true. What are some of the ways we do this? That is actually true, but how do we do this? How do we assert ourselves? Yes. Isabella, can you now see the next slide? We adopt a new lifestyle. That is true. In the interest of yes, that is very true. We adopt a new lifestyle. Any other? Any other? Any other way? We adopt a new lifestyle. We engage in different religion. That is true. Education system, career, etc. Thank you for that life pillars. Actually, pointing to that. For those who may have furthered their education, we imitate others. Very true. For those who've gone ahead to further education or moved into new neighborhoods, you get, or even picked up new friendships, or even joined a new faith, a new religion, or a new church, or a new place, basically, looking for a way to just redefine ourselves. That is actually very true. So, and when you look at the reasons why we do some of these things, is most of the time we have we have a thought, we have a reason why we want to identify with a certain group, for example, or we want to achieve a certain objective, or a reason why we need to redefine ourselves, there's a thought process that goes along with that. The other theory about self-concept is that it is multidimensional, incorporates our views of ourselves in terms of several different aspects, in terms of our social lives, in terms of our religious affiliations, in terms of our spirituality, our physical selves, our own emotions, and even now, COVID-19. I like a statement, at least one of the discussions within the spaces of psychology has been, what can we do about this time? One of the things COVID did is make us, when we were not listed anywhere as an essential service, privately on our own, did that strike you? Did you, for a moment there, think through the fact that, am I in a space that is essential, or is it not? Did that ever cross your mind at some point? You could think through that. The fact that we may not be able to interact with our clients as we should, has that made you question your space? Yeah, who you are as a therapist, courtesy of the social distancing, because the profession of psychology demands of us to interact with people within this, or rather have a social interaction with people in terms of the one-on-ones or the talks or whatever it is, So this COVID-19 has greatly adjusted that. Has it made you question if what we do is important, Is that possible? Has it made you question that? Because you may have identified yourself as a therapist for the longest, but now all of a sudden you're wondering, hey, is this important? Is it not, among others? That's not to downplay the fact that it's absolutely important. Okay? Our self-concept is also learned and not inherent. It's not necessarily something that nature may play a part of the innate, but the truth is our self-concept is learned. And how do we learn this? Through the schemas we pick up in life as we go along. How do you know you're a kind person? How do you get to understand your role as a therapist, as a mom, as a dad, as a sister, as a brother, among others? It takes interacting with people within a social setup to be able to learn your how you perceive yourself within that particular setup. Okay? It is influenced by biological and environmental factors, but social interaction plays a big role as well, which is now limited to virtual more than physical, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier. It develops through childhood and early adulthood, when it is more easily changed and updated, or at least that has been our perception. So I think less attention has been paid to the self-concept of adults than for children. It can be changed in later years, but it is more of an uphill battle since people have established ideas about who they are. And this uphill battle can be felt within oneself as well. It doesn't have to only be outward. It does not always align with reality. When it does, our self-concept is congruent, which is genuine. When it doesn't, our self-concept is incongruent. Okay? The self-concept does not always have to align with reality. Okay, so how is the world changing? What are some of the things that are going on in the world? I'm still on. Okay. Isabella, I can see you. Can you now see the next slide? Okay, thank you. How is the world changing? Can you think through that? How is the world changing? I think one of the, I pray and hope all of you have the privilege of actually doing, yes, I've seen a chat. We are becoming more digitized, very true. The world is changing technologically, very true, yes. Anything else? How else is the world changing? We are working more from home, that is true, yes. Society is also changing. Social fabrics are breaking down, very true. What else is happening? Thank you, Florence, Isabella, Life Givers. Thank you for the feedback. That is feedback I'm reading from the chat. All of us can access that. Parents are home and seeing their children more. That is actually very true. Rethinking where my place is in society. Social contact with people in other countries and continents is becoming easier and much more frequent. Very true. Relationships in families breaking or strengthening, that is true. Thank you for that. I am losing my mind in this isolation. I can only imagine, which is actually very true. We never have seen a world where we are isolated from each other. Questioning relevance in the society, that is true. The world is a global village. You can shop from anywhere in the world, yes. Families are connecting more, I think, because of fear of the unknown. That is also very true. God has become much more relevant. That is true. The elements of spirituality. That is actually true. We were joking with someone not so long ago and saying, for a long time, we've been used to sitting on pews and being taught about issues of faith. You know, the pastor reads for us the Bible and does absolutely everything for us on Sundays or Saturdays, depending on where we worship and the format there. I'm only speaking to that because that's the faith I belong to. Then we'd go through the entire week and then pick up again on Saturday. You know, right now it depends on us to grow ourselves in faith. We want to connect it. It's absolutely dependent on each one of us and our respective families. Yeah. So that was in regard to God has become much more relevant. Information overload, both positive and negative. More self-care because resting more, less traffic jams. True. Can I get a note, please? Yes, and we'll see what to do. People are getting to question where they really are and their capabilities. That is true. Even the daily behaviors of individuals are becoming real without masks or pretense. That is very true. Thank you so much for that. In regard to how the world is changing. Okay. Thank you so much for your feedback. I appreciate the interaction. Yes, indeed, the world has become a global village, you know, one of the big changes in the world, yeah? So we can access anywhere, anything, anywhere, anytime. We can be trained anywhere, okay? We can be taught anywhere. I'll give you guys my number at the end of the presentation. Then you can just send me a message with your email addresses if you want the notes, okay? Global village. Yes, indeed, the world has become a global village, demanding more and more from us, you know. We can interact with anyone, anywhere, be taught by anyone. You can log into any class anywhere. I mean, I'm sitting in my house and I'm able to share knowledge on a platform that is part of, I think, the world becoming a global village, and anyone can log in from anywhere across the world. Okay? That is actually very true. Now, with the world becoming a global village, it means our boundaries have become also much smaller or much thinner. You know, we don't have the same kind of boundaries we had before. You know, then something else, health and wealth. Our perception of health and wealth has greatly changed. You know, for example, in terms of health, we now I actually had a discussion with somebody, and he was telling me we may finally get rid of communicable diseases. Because the truth is, some of the things that we've been pushed to do in this season, yeah, may actually impact us long term. Things like washing hands. Okay. And can you now see the slides? I hope so. Please let us know. Things like washing hands for a long time. I think for many people, and many people, if you're being honest, can actually attest to this. From simple things like just leaving the toilet and washing hands. That was, people were not very consistent with that. Even our children were not necessarily nurtured into that. There are those who manage to teach their children that, but for most people, it was still a struggle, you know? When you come from outside, you wash your hands. Because we've seen children come from playing with the soil and quickly jump in to eat a meal. And sometimes we remember halfway through or just after they start that, hey, you've not washed your hands, you know? So washing hands, things as simple as washing hands were not necessarily easily adaptable for many people. I think the world of health is also greatly changing. And one of the things is creativity is blossoming, and we are relearning how to do things in a simplified, convenient, digitized way. We are less wasteful and more compassionate and less selfish. Very true life pillars. Thank you for that. Someone said the battles that have been fought in the world from time immemorial have required guns and basically ammunition, yeah, guns, the bullets, all that, and a total military, you know. Now we are fighting a battle that requires more health workers. You see, that's how the scope of health has also really changed. Because then what it means is, in the future, the budget given towards health will greatly change. The budget given towards security in terms of our military forces and things like that has always significantly been different from the rest. Why? Because protecting ourselves within certain borders was very important for most countries. And now the budget towards that has also had to change. Well, for the longest time, we thought some things are for the poor, you know, and being wealthy would naturally exempt you from experiencing certain aspects of life. And now all of a sudden, whether you're rich or poor, or whatever, whichever place you may be in, this is all being challenged. And it's no longer a safety net from certain aspects of life. It used to be, it's no longer the same. It's no longer a safety net from certain aspects of life. Okay? And education, we needed blackboards for education to happen. We needed paper to write down, you know. We needed so many, we needed to be physically present for someone, for learning to take place, you know. But that has also now changed. Yeah. So when I say realization that we are all the same, irrespective of our standing in society, that is actually very true. Yeah. So we needed, yeah, as the image on this side shows, we needed the blackboards to interact within a class setup and things like that. Now we are learning that education can happen without teachers being physically present. That's interesting. That's a place we never ever imagined we would get. I don't think any of us ever saw that happen. Oh, side notes cannot be seen. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. So people no longer have to be in class to learn. The attitudes towards learning have also changed. I remember when I was doing my undergraduate back in the day, we used to say it's important to go to class because well, there are those of us who say I learn the most when I'm in class, and there are those who say I learn well when I'm not in class. I learn by going through the notes. I learn by being prepared before the teacher, among others. Even these attitudes are likely to react or to change with the things that are happening currently, because our learning is no longer the same. Our ways of learning are no longer the same as they were. And you can only imagine what's going to happen going forward. Every school must find a way to interact with their students or within online classes into their normal physical classes. Ideally, the next generation or the next class of education must find a way to weave in technology with the things they do physically with the children or with the rest of us as well. Okay, we can do exams online, among others. So those of us who may have at one point or the other said, me, I am not tech savvy, I cannot use technology. What does that mean? That gradually you may actually be left behind, So we only have two choices: get on board or be left behind. Okay. Economy, I think this is one of the things that has greatly changed or is greatly changing as time goes by. And you can remember back in the day, from what we learned from our classes when we were younger, we were told about barter trade and we got to a place of using actually money to trade. Now we don't even need to use money. Now we use, it's called what? What do we call, it's called what? M-Pesa, credit cards, or what do we call that? Digital cash. Yeah, we're going towards a place where we're going to use digital cash. What does that mean for small and medium, especially small enterprises? Because we've left certain things for certain people. But now, as time is going by, we are quickly learning that, what? We have to find a way to use, to partake of this, it's called what? Digital cash in every aspect of our lives. For us, we have a platform that helps us with that, which is M-Pesa, that has a reach for every single person. But now, going forward, this must be something that everyone takes up, But leave alone even that. Careers are no longer what they were, the people who've run the economy for the longest time, the industries and stuff like that, they can no longer do business the same way they have. This is another big change in the world that people have had to readjust to. Allow me to mute somebody, Flora. Okay. Any questions up to that point? I hope we're together. Another thing is climate change, We tend to experience climatic conditions that are now unpredictable. I don't think we have rainy seasons anymore and sunny seasons anymore as we did back in the day. Seasons have sort of changed and they're readjusting, they're changing differently. With that, then many other things are happening to the environment. So it impacts us in terms of even getting food, among others. There are so many ways that this is likely to impact us long term. We cannot downplay how much climate change is going to affect us in the long run. Then world politics. The landscape of local politics and international politics is no longer predictable. I think last year, for example, in our, let's say, local setup, if someone had told us we'd go through a day without, or a week, no, a day without watching politics on our screens, we'd have said it's impossible. currently we are experiencing scenarios where we are actually, it's no longer the same as it was, you know. The messages that were passed that would have made us easily hate each other and things like that, have contempt towards each other and things like that, are no longer as permissible, courtesy of something new that has totally changed the scope of what we pay attention to. Okay. Lifepila says, I love that we are no longer being bombarded with BBI, ETC dramas. Amen. That is very true. Then, what it means is there has been actually been a sense of relief for many people, courtesy of the changes that have resulted or that are coming. Okay? And the truth is, if you think about it, well, it may not be possible for us to predict right away, but you think we would ever go back to that place where we experience politics the same way? We don't know, you know. We don't know. We don't know what tomorrow is likely to come with. But we now come to learn that there are more important things than just politics. And I think for some people, what they've also come to learn then is, if there are more important things than politics, then it matters who is leading you politically within any space. Okay. And we have the social and personal events that may not necessarily be on the world stage, but that have big change, that changes in our own respective worlds, you know. And these are the realization of our mortality. How easy is it to die? You know, we may have been aware that it's very easy for us. I mean, death is a part of life, but now more than ever, it's more real than ever before. Our relations with our children, both small and big. And interestingly, there's a time when parents were complaining, parents of adolescents and teenagers, that the teenagers never stay at home. They're always all over the place. Now they have to stay at home, you know, and be grounded because of this. It will be interesting to find out what are the changes that the parents are seeing. They may not have access to the things that they were experimenting with, like the drugs or even the sex with each other, among others. How has this in turn affected them? What are their new perspectives? It would be interesting to find that out. We have aging parents. I think for a long time we didn't. We know about aging parents and taking care of parents, but we never knew how fragile or vulnerable they are until right now. You know, when you see more people getting out of their way to take care of their aging parents more and things like that. Death of parents and close friends, but this can happen to anybody, anywhere. This is actually a reality of life. Nothing too new here, but then again, this situation has brought it to our doorstep. We see it more than we did before. We interact with it more than we did before. Then we have divorce, which has become a big part of people's lives, and we have remarriage for some people, and have step-family relations as well. They are big parts of people's lives and things that actually do really change people's lives, and that change how people see themselves or perceive themselves. Okay, so what is the effect of all this on your self-concept? What would you say? What is the effect of all this on your self-concept? So, and maybe just to help you think through that as we answer, how would you define your current perception of self? Who are you in this season? Is there hope, or is everything hopeless? Will you be among the gainers or the losers? What is the effect of all these changes on your self-concept? I know we've mentioned that in our previous chats, even in responses. Yeah, it's a continuous discussion, but it can also feel like a black hole. That's the intention of the black dot you see in the middle of that. It feels like a black hole where we can't see what's on the other end. We don't know what we're going to come to, you know. we seem to be falling through, but with no knowledge of what we are falling into, you know, or who holds us in this season, you know. But one thing that we should also realize is that even as there is a black hole, or it feels like there is a black hole, there are stars all around it. Okay? There are stars all around the black hole. There are opportunities, you know. There are new things. There are new ways. Some of us may not have. You're discovering new things about yourself that you never knew were there. Some of us are gonna be authors by the time that lockdown ends, you know. It has helped me draw out strength I never knew existed before. Thank you for that, Anne. Yes, you discover resources within yourself that you never even knew were there. I know for most adults, you'd never have thought you can sit in your house for a whole week without going anywhere. Now you have nowhere else to go, you know? Or even if you did have a place to go, you can't go. You're discovering, hiya, I can actually stay home, you know, which is a new discovery. So thank you for that, Anne. That's actually very true. It's coming with new things that we didn't know were there, okay? So be encouraged. A changing world has presented fresh opportunities. You can see that chart. It has got Isabella, it has gotten me out of my cocoon to change, or changes take over. That is true, Isabella. That's actually very true, which speaks to actually what I had alluded to earlier, that if for a long time you have fought technology, never wanted to be on Facebook or anything, never wanted to interact with people online, all of a sudden, that's the only way, that's the one of the only great options that you have, then you have to quickly change, or change takes over. That is true, Isabella. Thank you for that. So be encouraged. A changing world has presented fresh opportunities, more sophisticated and flexible use of technology, less polarization. You know what that is? A revived appreciation for the outdoors and life's other simple pleasures. And yes, I have discovered every life is valuable. Very true, Anne. Things that we have taken for granted previously. Very true. Yeah. Yes. Thank you for that. A revived appreciation for the outdoors and life's other simple pleasures. You can imagine if the government was to tell us today that lockdown ends today. What's your plan for tomorrow? You know, I can only imagine. Or even if not tomorrow, what's your plan for the next 1 month? What is the one thing you feel you just must do if lockdown was to end today, and everything, and not just lockdown, but lockdown was to end today and COVID-19 had flatlined? What are some of the things that you'd want to do? You know? And no one knows exactly what will come, but we can only suppose what tomorrow holds and be our best today. That is true. Okay. So some of the ways that we have, some of the things that we have come to learn, I can learn without a classroom. What? That is interesting to find out, you know. We can survive without the Western world, you know. I can handle staying in the house. Wow, interesting. I can live without alcohol or whatever other thing that people had to use. This is sort of like mandatory rehabilitation for some people, you know. The people who thought they had to always pass by to take one for the road, they're now realizing, what? I can actually live without it, you know. We can refuse what the Western world offers us. And that goes back to point out what's his name? What's his name? Microsoft. What's his name? Um, Bill, Bill. I'm trying to remember that name. What's his name? The one who said that vaccines should be tried in Africa. Bill Gates. Thank you. Bill Gates. Thank you for that, Sylvia. Yes, and Anne. Interesting. Back in the day, I don't think we'd have thought that as Africans, we can actually refuse what the Western world offers. And you realize many Africans were extremely offended that he even suggested that vaccines should be tried in Africa. You're getting? What that means is then we can actually tell them, you know what, you and whatever you have, please stay with it. Before that, then, whatever vaccine, we've never wondered where vaccines come from and what kind of vaccines we use. We've never wondered that. Now we're in the space where we can actually question such things. We can ask, these vaccines we give our children, where do they come from? Are they usually trials? Are they usually actuals? Are they supposed to really help, or it's just something they're trying? I can, like pillars, I can connect better with new people because we are more humble and open to new connections. I love this and will leverage it for my work and social life. Very true. Thank you for that. Yeah, So now we are learning that we have a power we never knew existed. Gradually, what is going to happen with learning to say no to what we are offered that may look good but is not, like in the case of the incident with Bill Gates, we will gradually learn. We also don't have to take everything our leaders have to offer. In any situation, in any place in our lives, we are quickly learning we can say no. We have a power within ourselves that we didn't even know existed. We've learned we can work remotely. We can handle social media. For those who thought, I have a friend who last week told me, I thought I could live without social media. I have had to recreate another account for myself. So we are finding ways to quickly work with these things just for the betterment of all of us, a redefinition of ourselves, our individual selves and our collective selves as well. Okay? And even our relational self. We are being redefined in every way. Okay? How can we work on our self-concept? A big way, yes. I feel Africa is awakening to a new reality that they can unite and become autonomous from the West. That is actually true. Discovering a power we never knew existed. Yeah. Thank you, Life Pillars. This presentation is awesome. It's very quickly and connecting to me. So thank you. Thank you. I sure will at the end of it. Okay. Okay. So how can we work on our self-concept? Simple things like mindfulness. Do we know what mindfulness is? There are techniques we use with our clients every so often, but do we, and I know, yes, we are bound to have told our clients to use them at some point, but we may not necessarily be using them for ourselves. And this is the one time when we have to take we have to drink the water we preach as therapists, We can't take it out. We can't just pass it outside. We have to be able to feed back ourselves with what we have been telling our clients to do. Okay? I've seen a chat somewhere. Yes, Florence, I will share the slides with you as well. Okay. So mindfulness is a good place to start. We need to be mindful of ourselves. It's a process that is purposeful. It helps bring attention to our own experiences that are occurring in the moment without judgment. Being mindful involves maybe you could do yoga, for those who want to. You could do meditation. There are various ways of reducing stress with mindfulness. Yeah, because we have something we call stress reduction, mindfulness stress reduction therapy. Okay. And what this does is basically finding a way to maintain your thoughts and your feelings and be aware of your body's sensations and be appreciative of your surrounding environment as well through a gentle and nurturing lens. Some of us live in places that have compounds. Have you ever sat outside your house, just taken a chair and sat on a garden somewhere? Or if you live in an apartment, have you ever sat in the balcony on your own and just put through? Just be more aware and be appreciative of the things that are good in your life, and things like that. So that's actually one of the ways that you can actually help in working on your own self-concept in this changing time. Another one is self-acceptance. Realize what you can change, do something about it. Realize what you cannot change, and find a way to accept that. The things you can change, actively participate in changing. But the things you can't change, accept them and find a way to live with them. Then common humanity, showing other people kindness, showing other people they're one. I remember someone talked about let me just read the chat, part of common humanity. I can connect better with new people because we are more humble and open to new connections. Yeah. I think that is one of the ways of ensuring common humanity. We were the kind of people who would get into a matatu and quickly be in our phones, just typing on our phones and not minding who was sitting next to us. Now we have realized, you know what? You can be affected just like me. And what that does, as much as the social distancing works against that in terms of it keeps us further and further apart from each other, but it has also reminded us that we actually benefit from being next to each other, showing kindness, like for the people who cannot afford and the people who may not have enough and things like that. And something else is motivation, finding ways to motivate yourself, uh, working with your strengths, going to uncharted waters and actually making it and appreciating the fact that you have made it. You know, simple things like sitting in the house the whole day. Appreciate the fact that you have managed it. Simple things. Wake up in the morning, take a shower, clean yourself up, dress up nicely, take a seat and watch a movie. Find ways to motivate yourself and keep yourself inspired. Okay. Okay. Finally, two things. Change is the only constant in life. So we bear that in mind, we will just be fine. And when life gives you lemons, make lemonade out of them. That is one of the things that I know we know, and you can find ways to use that in your life, better your life, or to improve your self-concept. Okay. Any questions? Concerns? Comments? No questions? Okay, so I'll take a few minutes just to. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Florence. I appreciate that. Thank you, Isabella. For those of you who may want me to send you an email, my number is 07. Please just text me your email address. Even on text is okay. Yeah, then I'll see what to do. I'll actually send it right away, okay? Okay. Thank you so much for participating. Enjoy the rest of your day. Feel free to leave once you're ready. Thank you, David. In relation to counseling, which are the emerging issues? Flora, kindly just clarify that question. I didn't get that very clearly. Kindly just clarify it and let me know. Flora, you asked a question, or was it a comment? I didn't get that. please clarify so that I can respond? Thank you. Oh yes, we used to have face-to-face counseling. Oh, you're talking about one of the changes? Oh, David, we can always organize that. But now we are doing online counseling. That is true, Flora. Sorry, I think the message came in a little late. Yes, that is true. One of the big changes. We used to have face-to-face counseling. Now we are doing more online counseling. Yes. Thank you all. I also sincerely appreciate it. It was a great session for me, a new learning with a great. I really am grateful. Thank you so much for participating. I'll get all the email addresses and send.
Sinito imefika 83%. Sinito imefika 83%. Imefika 83. Laptop. Hapo kwanza. Sini unakaa nguo moja tu. Something now I go on the tour.